And welcome everyone to Shifting Lanes Garage's live podcast, aka Shift Talk, SHIFT. For any of the robots listening, I am not swearing. It's literally part of our name.
Shift, as in shifting a gear, as in shifting a lane. Very easy to understand.
And welcome to what was going to be a very awesome show, but pretty normal fare, where Greg and I go back and forth and we talk about the news topics of the day. And
all of a sudden,
then holy crap, the last, I'm not kidding, hour, we had news from Chevy as it pertains to a brand new Camaro that is not in any way, shape, or form the most disappointing thing since the last Charger was announced.
Don't bury the lead, man.
And then, as I'm rushing to change titles and everything like that, it's an absolute shift show.
Well played.
At Bowman Gray for the Clash, it literally started sleeting, and they're like, "Oh well, it's an oval. They're gonna that sucks. It's gonna be done. Damn." Whatever, let's look forward. Nope, they put him out on rain tires. Shane Van Gisbergen stormed to the front, and well, he's in fourth now, I think, but like SVG leading at an oval, kind of a big deal.
Very big deal.
And then, as I'm contemplating making a very fast reel about that, we have news from the Cletus McFarland camp that is absolutely massive in the fact that, and I'll kind of lay some context down here. We all know he's been racing in ARCA. We all know that the passion and the personality and all that he brings to ARCA was arguably one of the biggest highlights of last year in NASCAR. He made it feel like old school NASCAR, which is something NASCAR desperately needs. And then there was a buttload of speculation this entire offseason with the way Ram was going to do the trucks and how Colleague Racing was going to do these different seats, for one for like a legend, one for they're doing that reality series about the driver getting a seat and all that other sort of fun stuff. And we all assumed that Cletus not assumed, but the wishful thinking was that he was going to get a seat in one of those cars. But kind of the realists in the room were like, he's only got 1 year in ARCA. Let's see how it goes, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And then, bam, he hits us on his socials with, let's see if I have it.
Sort of an by the way post, apparently. Because it's 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. Not exactly like prime time for dropping some news.
Right, but apparently, so on the Garrett Mitchell Facebook page, which is, if you don't know, Garrett Mitchell is Cletus.
Yeah, that's his actual name.
He goes, since the news was leaking already, I thought we'd announce it ourselves that I'm approval testing to do some truck racing, more to come. And on the actual Cletus page, he goes, I'll be testing next week, so literally next week, some NASCAR truck racing. That's all I can say for now, but it's possible because of Black Rifle Coffee, Brunt Workwear supporting him. And if you don't know, the Matt Best, who's one of the founders and owners of, well, I guess they're public, but Matt Best was one of the founders of Black Rifle Coffee. And between him, a lot of the guys down in Texas, and Cletus and Travis Pastrana, they're kind of a tight-knit group of guys. Black Rifle tries to sponsor and take care of those guys wherever they can, all that sort of stuff. So I was wondering when that connection would be breached for potential sponsorship, because Black Rifle Coffee has been sponsoring stuff in NASCAR for some time now, or what have you. Brunt Workwear sponsors literally every YouTuber I know under the sun except for us.
By the way, I had Black Rifle Coffee for the first time. I, on a whim, bought some from the supermarket. Really good coffee. Please sponsor. Not joking. I actually bought that with my money, and we don't
Which
have
one
a
did you get?
by
Because they're like
I know they have a bunch.
they're like the
I forget.
Dark military humor of to coffee what Ben and Jerry is to like
Ice cream. Yeah,
hippie
yeah.
ice cream.
Yeah, I think it's the 1776 blend.
Okay.
I want to say where it's. I think it is. I have to go look at the bag, but it's pre-ground. Usually, I don't do that. I grind my own beans because I'm a snob. But I was like, you know what? I need to save some time, and I got it. I'm like, this is actually good coffee. I will continue drinking this. For grocery store coffee, I'm like probably the best grocery store coffee I've ever had.
But yeah, it's funny. Like they take so. Sorry, I'm just trying to share to places.
Share to the socials.
It's funny because I don't know. Well, we got Sean and we have Steve in chat here, so they know. But to anyone who doesn't know, my day job is marketing. And one of the things I specialize in is there's no real good term for it because like grassroots marketing is kind of apt or what have you. Alternative marketing doesn't really tell the whole story. Viral marketing is kind of it, but I hate fucking using the term viral because it's so misused that it's kind of lost its true meaning as it pertains to content. But like Black Rifle Coffee was one of the first companies to advertise using these types of methods. Like literally nothing to do with coffee. And it's like, oh, by the way, at the end, we make coffee or what have you. Like some of Matt Best's and Black Rifle Coffee's, their skits are some of the funniest stuff on the internet. And again, like, yeah, it might have a coffee premise or like some of that random stuff, but it's just about having fun, being entertaining, all this other sort of stuff. Just a bunch, and it's all veterans. And they do a ton to support veterans. But it's just, and it's a bunch of dudes not taking themselves seriously. And it's it's like Manscaped, how it really leaned into, keeping the little Greg and the backup singers, all nice and, well groomed, per se. And then look, now they're just a full on male grooming company. That makes some of the best, like electric, I don't want to say razors, but clippers or what have you. So like I was wondering when they like, so that him and Cletus is kind of a natural fit, right? It's one of those things where it's like 1 + 1 = 3.
Yes.
Right. But like that is huge because again, he's only now, yes, Cletus has driven dirt modifieds. He's driven other NASCAR stuff. Obviously, he does the Crown Vic stuff, all of that. And he did, I think, 4 races in ARCA last year with varying degrees of success. He's obviously got the talent for it. He just doesn't have the experience for it yet. So make 4 races. He's going to do another 4 or 5 this year. He actually got his buddy Squirrel to do it with him for a couple races. And now he's testing a truck. Like, that's pretty damn massive because let's just say I don't know how it will all translate. I doubt he's going to be in a truck at Daytona this year.
Yeah, I hugely doubt that
he
too.
Might. That is possible because the way he did the ARCA test was a pretty truncated schedule last year.
Sure. But
more laps is good.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see him in a truck at Daytona this year. Next year, after he gets maybe like a couple of races under his belt, if that's the case, he does like a 6 to 8 race kind of like package, and then they're like, oh, okay, this guy can drive, and then they'll give him maybe like a half seat for next year or something, and then make it as it goes. But like, I can see him in Daytona next year for sure.
I mean, I absolutely see him potentially because it's kind of ass backwards. Because everybody sits here and thinks because the speed is so high, it's a drafting track, there's a lot of subtle nuance to it. Mm-hmm. That Daytona, Talladega, the super speedways, the formerly restrictor plate races, would be the hardest. It's actually the opposite. The slowest ovals, the short tracks, are the hardest. And the big tracks are the nothing. It's not easy, but it's easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like you or I could just go sit in it and then like 10 laps have it kind of figured out. It's not quite that, but if you have experience on a track in a car, especially if you do circle racing, it's there's a way to you have a feel for it, I guess is the best way to put
Right.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
So like there's absolutely a world where I can see him doing one of the big tracks this year. I could see him doing like an intermediate track as well, because the trucks aren't too dissimilar to the ARCA cars. They run spec engines from, I forget, like 2, maybe 3 engine suppliers. They're basic engines. They make a ton of power because, hey, guess what? When you can run on race fuel, you can make a lot of horsepower if you're an engine builder.
Touche.
And so like a complaint that a lot of the old hats have about the modern truck is that it's too easy to drive. That it's making so much downforce that you can, on anything other than a short track, you can just stay in the throttle and you're okay. Like, so pretty much every big oval race is almost like a super speedway or something like that. Obviously, each track has its nuance. I'm not trying to overly simplify it or what have you. But it's really freaking cool. Like, and I made a video about this. That's why we're a little late, because this is massive news.
Yeah.
It's not something. It wasn't one of those things that I could go, oh, let me do it after the stream or what have you. And it's awesome because like you're starting to see more and more YouTubers get into professional racing, and I think that's fucking awesome.
I agree.
You see it with like the Jimmy Broadbent Super GT, Misha Calderon with their Nürburgring stuff.
Yeah.
You see it, Adam LZ in drifting.
It's very much in that same vein of gamers getting into it, where Gran Turismo had that pipeline program basically,
right,
to bring them in, and it feels very similar because you have this, racing has this untapped pool of talent that of people that are around cars all the time. They're driving cars all the time. Hell, a lot of them are racing them all the time. Cletus with the drag racing. Adam LZ, like you said, with the drifting. Colette Davis, I know they're dating or whatever, and she's drifted forever. Amelia Hartford, again, another one that's done professional racing as well as drifting. Who's the other guy? TJ Hunt, I think, also does drifting. But like, there are so many YouTubers and people that have done like serious driving, and not only just serious driving, but like they're also just around cars all the time. And if you're gonna have a talent pool that's untapped, that's where you want to be getting it from, because they know how to control cars, at least for the most part, or they should. They've been driving for so damn long, and they've been doing these random stunts and things that, for YouTube videos for so damn long. They probably have figured out a lot. I always say that Damon from DDE, if he really like went into this and got into drifting, like seriously, I think he would be excellent at it, because he's been drifting supercars for well over a decade now. And if anyone knows anything about car control, Damon is probably up there as far as YouTubers are concerned. So like, I think this is a great idea, and it should definitely be more explored by a lot of these racing series, because there are so many people in this space, in the creator space, that are just like, we can do this. And Cletus is now, I think, at the forefront of that, with how popular he is, how big his reach is, and with how he is, how he's doing, and how well he did. So I think not only is he going to be in a truck, I think he's going to be really good at it.
And I mean, and from the flip side of things, I shouldn't say nobody, but imagine, like, look at what Cletus did to ARCA.
Oh, yeah. Like,
right?
When's the last time a casual racing fan heard of ARCA? Basically never. then all
maybe
of a
it's
sudden,
mentioned in passing, or maybe it's like
right?
they're
You see
talking
it in a
about
magazine,
someone or something. Like
Yeah.
they know it, like they may know it exists from watching a broadcast, but they don't really.
Correct. Oh, here's a pipeline driver you might see in a couple years. Blah blah blah. Then all of a sudden, everyone's like, "I'm gonna go to an ARCA race." Blah blah blah.
And like, not for nothing, but like, again, if you were to say sponsor a Cletus, if you were to say Damon Fryer, right? Say he wants to get into Formula Drift. Sponsoring his car is, again, another one of those situations where 1 + 1 = 3.
Correct.
Because you're not just getting that name for the event at the ticket sales. People are gonna, you're bringing in arguably an entirely new audience that's millions strong.
Yeah.
And if even 10% watch the event, skyrockets.
Yeah, you triple your audience instantly.
You know, it's just it just makes a ton of sense. And like you said, these sim racer guys, like with Jan Mardenborough, who's very famous for winning the GT Academy, and they made a okay movie about it. There's a lot in there that I'm quick thing on the movies and stuff. We've talked about like the F1 movie and stuff like that. Just the little stuff that the average person just doesn't notice. And then I see like F1 movie up for, what was it, 4 or 5 Academy Awards. It's like, it's great. Or and then like people are like, and then people who don't know motorsports all that well, it's like, it's one of the best racing movies ever. And it's like,
But it's not.
But it got a lot wrong. And I'm not saying they should, like, random stuff. You know, but it's like all of these people, like Jimmy Broadbent, streamer, sim racer. He goes over and races at the Nürburgring. I didn't really much care about the VLN series, which is the endurance series that races on the ring. I would tune in for the Nürburgring 24, but that was about it. And not for nothing, in those series, I would usually only care about like the GT3 cars. So those are the coolest of the cars that race there. And they were in a GT4 car, and it's the same basic type of thing. You know, if you watch that type of racing, you know the GT4 class exists. You're like, that's kind of cool. I like, oh, that's a neat story. What are the GT3s doing? Oh, I didn't know that car raced. Blah, blah, blah. What are the GT3 cars doing, right? Like,
yeah.
But because of him, and again, he raced, his teammates were Super GT and Misha Calderon. Like, those are both channels. I know. Super GT has 1 million subs.
Yeah, he's great. I've been watching him forever.
And then you have Jimmy Broadbent, who has 1 million subs. And like, that's, you could easily be bringing in close to 3 million people at worst, 2.5 million. I can't. Yeah. Apparently, Misha has such a crazy nickname that I try to Google it, and it's like nope. At any rate,
yeah.
You know, what have you, and it's just, again, you know, these guys, you put them in a car, you test them, you know you'll know right off the bat if the ability they have and what they do for content translates over. Let's see here real quick. I just want to catch up. Let's see here. Sean, Steve, Andrew Kaiser. Welcome to the chat, my friend. He goes, are we noticing that Gregson's name is spelled wrong on the stream?
Yep, we sure are. It's going to probably stay like that for a long time.
So, Andrew, just to fill you in on the joke there, we had one of our Australian friends in chat a couple weeks ago mistakenly called Greg Grayson.
Which, of course, is a very popular name for children right now.
You know, giving him a little bit of the business, as we do here. or what have you, and then he's like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry, and I'm like, "Don't worry about it, don't worry about it." And I changed Gregson's display name for that.
I get it about twice a week at work because so many people type on their phone and they type Gregson and it autocorrects to Grayson on almost every phone in existence because Grayson again is a very popular name. So
And this is your fault. You went by Greg for most of the time in my life that I knew you, and you decided to get all fancy and put your pinky out and add the sun.
Hey, it's more memorable that way. It's good brand recognition. You as a marketer should know this.
Yes. Let me just see here. Oh man, I was talking to Grayson the other day. Let me just go. Why can't I find him?
No, the whole story about that actually is really quick. I work in marketing as well, and I work in pharma marketing, and I was on a launch brand. And this was like a blockbuster drug. You probably all know it. It's called Xarelto. So it was launched many years ago. It basically replaced warfarin for like cardiovascular diseases and stuff. And we launched it, but it was a team of 60 people just on one thing. And I shit you not, there were 5 Gregs on the team, including me. And I'm like, my name is Gregson. Like, actually, this is going to make this at least 1/5 easier. I'm no longer responding to Greg. And everyone laughed and it stuck. And I was like, oh, all right, that works. And I also recognized that it was a great pickup line in college. And I'm like, oh, so that's cool. Because I was at a bar one night and I whipped out my ID and this girl
Thank you
was
for
sitting next to
clarifying.
me.
So it worked as a pickup line. So I was at a bar one night and I whipped it out. My ID.
It was the ID. Though back then and how drunk I was, I would not put it past me. Whipped out my ID.
It's cold in here. State college in winter.
It's always cold in here. It's weird. And this girl was like, I was not drunk like at all at that point. I like just got to the bar. This girl was extremely, and she I know, but she like leans over. She's like drunkenly. She's like, "Oh, is your name Gregson? That's a weird name." And then her friend, who was not as drunk, leaned over and went, "Wait, your name's actually Gregson?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a click. That's okay." It clicked in my brain. It's just like, "Hey, I have an interesting name that could just be a really easy in." So it's like, "Hi, my name is Gregson." Like, if you ever watch How I Met Your Mother, have you met Ted? Yeah. It's sort of like, "Hi, I'm Gregson," and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, let me explain." And then it was just a really easy way to like just start a conversation. So after that, and then the work thing years later, I'm just like, fuck it. I'm Gregson now. Forget it. Greg is gone. Gregson lives. This is just better. We're done.
Yeah, Sean asked if it technically means you're the son of Greg. It does not. Otherwise, Greg's firstborn would be Gregson's son.
Which would be hilarious. And also that poor child. No, my parents were like, Greg, our son, Gregson. The end. That was it.
And then we have Chris Chandler in chat, who used to build the Camaro in Oshawa.
What, Canada? Spell it.
You don't have chat up?
No, I don't. I closed it because my computer's bugging out. So I only have us currently.
You know what? I really need a direct line. I really need a direct line to your wife during these shows, so I can just be like, "Hey, can you just walk in and slap Greg for me?"
Hang on, let me bring it up.
It's Oshawa.
Oh yeah, Oshawa, correct.
Right. Now, before we move on to the Camaro, I did want to get one more piece of information on the whole content creators in motorsport thing.
Yes.
You are a content creator. If you could parlay that into a motorsports venture, what motorsport would it be?
Excellent question. I didn't prepare for. But it would be GT racing, just because every single time I played a racing game, that's the car I wanted to be in. Every single time. Because F1's cool. Obviously, that's not happening. Um,
And the YouTuber comes around the final corner and takes out half the field.
yeah. On his first lap of attempted practice, he has taken out 18 barriers. That's weird. No, probably GT3 racing. They're cool. They're supercar based. They've always been very like approachable race cars in that sense of just like, ooh, you know what? I could see that on the road, but it's very close to what you could see on the road. IndyCar, I've always been a huge fan of that, but like my favorite type of racing has always been that. I'd say a close second would be rally, just because of my Subaru ownership. I loved going to a rally at one time up in Maine. That was a lot of fun, and just the biblical amount of car control that those guys have is just insane, and I would love to learn how to do that. So I would say GT racing first, rally second. What about you? I'm gonna guess that GT or GT3 is probably your number one as well.
Yeah. Just because, to expand on your points, it's accessible. The cars are designed not to be. The cars are designed with non-professionals in mind. And obviously professionals drive them. But the whole point of GT3 was to build a car, obviously based on a road car, that pros and AMs could drive together. Now, whether the AMs were up-and-coming drivers who just haven't accumulated enough points or results to be considered, a gold or platinum driver, or more specifically, gentleman drivers. Because in sports car racing specifically, outside of the tippity top of like your hypercar or GTP here in the States, it's almost the history of, we'll just call them, wealthy individuals financing race teams and using that to have a seat in said race car is pretty. I mean, that history goes back decades. Arguably some of the most famous examples would be guys like Paul Newman. God damn it, I had his name on the tip of my tongue and now I lost it.
Describe him.
Porsche enthusiast, drove Porsches at Le Mans, was on that hospital show. McDreamy.
Patrick Dempsey.
There it is.
As you say, McDreamy? I've literally watched one episode of Grey's Anatomy ever, and I know his nickname because every person on Earth knew his nickname at that point when he was on that show.
But you have guys like Tim Allen participated in a 24 Hours of Daytona one year, then you have there's a bunch of guys, so it's like ingrained in it. So the cars themselves are very approachable. They have tunable ABS, meaning, let's just say hypothetically, Greg goes around and does his stint. He's obviously going to have a little bit higher of ABS, a little bit higher of traction control. But say the professional that gets in the car after him, after he, his knees stop hurting because Greg sits. I would love to see the difference between you and some a guy who's 6 foot. Like, your race insert would look like a baby seat, like a child like a car seat.
Pretty much, yeah.
That would be crazy.
It's
and the same thing applies to like GT4. I think the same is in GT2. GT2 is a weird thing that we don't necessarily have to get into unless someone in chat actually wants to hear about it. But like GT3, GT4. The touring cars, they're all really based around having a breadth of different skill levels in the car. Now, obviously, a beginner's going to get in, and even with traction control and ABS cranked all the way up, they're not going to be fast. Like, it's still a race car, but we're talking race car TC, race car ABS. So they're very approachable. But also, what I love about GT3 racing specifically is that the cars all have wide bodies. And it's not a wide body like a Liberty Walk or a Rocket Bunny or something. It is literally it's literally for function. So it always has an aggressive, functional look. And the cars always, I mean, always look better than their road-going counterparts. The BMW M4 with the buck teeth almost looks decent in race car trim.
Almost.
With the wide.
But you're right, because
it's not as horrifyingly ugly as it is in...
Correct. Because the wide body balances it out. In the regular road car, it's like, okay, it's a nice looking sports car, and then like chiclets, giant fucking pig nose chiclets up front. And you're like, that sucks. But then you get it in a race car trim, and you're like, oh, well, there's like a bar in the middle of it. Like there's wide body. It kind of balances it out a bit.
Yeah, it's nice. So the cars always look ridiculously cool. And for the umpteenth time, there is a requirement for homologation. It's not as strict as it used to be. It's not as one-to-one as it used to be. Case in point, when the Bentley Continental GT3s were a thing, and yes, Bentley did race a GT3 and had some fairly decent success with them, they were allowed to take the engine, move it further. Obviously, they couldn't use the all-wheel drive, but that meant they could take the engine, move it further back, and drop it lower, and not have to do that in a specific road car. Same with like the Nissan GTR, like the Audi R8s and all that sort of stuff. But things like the Ford Mustang GTD with the pushrod suspension, pushrod? I think it's pushrod.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yes, pushrod. Suspension, they couldn't just throw that in the race car and like leave the Dark Horse or the Dark Horse SC. Great car, terrible name. And then just be like, yeah, everything's fine. They actually had to build a certain number of cars with that rear suspension. Enter the GTD. Yeah. So we do not get the GTD without sports car racing. So
that's true.
Like that's kind of a
that's very accurate.
That's like the really cool thing about it. And also like GT3, when they finally decided to make GT3 the main GT class at like Le Mans, it completed the full and entire circle to where you can have one car, assuming Greg doesn't wreck it, race at the 24 Hours of Daytona. Now, obviously, things like customs would get in the way, but theoretically, you could race that car in Daytona, repair it, put it on a plane, like a cargo plane, fly it to Australia for the 12 Hours of Bathurst next weekend. This weekend? This weekend. No, next weekend.
Next
weekend. Oh, my God. And race there. And then you could take it up to Europe and do the 24 Hours of Spa, the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. You could race in the GT300 class of the All Japan Touring Car Series. You could race it in the GT3 class in IMSA. It's a global class that has so much flexibility that it's just really... The doors in the types of motorsport it opens up. Like, even at the tippity top of Le Mans, you don't race hypercars at the Nürburgring. It's on the Nordschleife. Right? In the 24 hour. And everything. So it's just a really cool... It's my favorite form of motorsport, bar none.
It is. It's awesome.
At any rate, alrighty. Steve asked if the race ended. Yes, it did. Ryan Priest won. Sean on Greg being a hazard in Formula One. He is the rolling chicane. That's what we call him in our sim racing group. Sean's going to bed. Have a good one, man. Sleep up. Sean goes, we're flying that car in first class. I mean, whatever gets there. But again, it's good. Customs being a thing, it would never be logistically possible from that sense. But this case in point, there's a Corvette GT3. Corvette GT3s and Mustang GT3s raced at 24 Hours of Daytona. There's a Mustang GT3 and a Corvette GT3 racing at Bathurst this year. Like, that's the point. Is like that car, just the classification is so adopted globally. It's just fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But now that we are actually 35 minutes into the show, we should probably get to our our title story, and maybe even our thumbnail stories.
Yeah, I guess if we have to.
But I was poking around the internet today, and I found
Today I went on the internet and I found this.
Chevy, according to MotorTrend, Chevy,
A highly reputable source of automotive information.
Yes, I mean their social teams.
This isn't Torque News we're talking about here.
Yeah. According to MotorTrend, Chevy prepares to reintroduce the Camaro nameplate to the market. Now,
Yay!
I may be a Mustang guy, but I have said for a long time the Mustang needs competition. The only competition for the Mustang is other Mustangs.
Yes. That's it. Currently, nothing else.
But
which sucks, by the way.
Yes. And MotorTrend is hearing from their sources that we should expect the bow tie to resurrect the Camaro not as a coupe, but as a fastback SUV aimed squarely at the redacted Mach-E. I'm not saying the word in front of Mach-E because it isn't.
Because it's not.
That is unless General Motors president Mark Roos has his way, and the Camaro makes its comeback as an electric car.
So either way, it's not coming back in the way we want it to. Which is dumb.
I have, as you might imagine, I have many thoughts on this.
Yeah, same.
And seeing as how I feel like I have been speaking 85% of this particular stream, why don't you give us your thoughts?
I mean, I think we're going to be pretty aligned on this one. I'll be honest. This is dumb. This is a really bad idea. One, it's not a Camaro. Same exact argument for the Mach-E. It is not a Mustang. The end. This is not a Camaro, nor will it ever be a Camaro, whether it's an electric car or a fastback SUV. And also, if they really wanted to make a Camaro fastback SUV, why don't they have a sports car or a muscle car or whatever you want to use, whatever nomenclature you want to have with it, as part of the offering, like as a normal car, the same way that Ford's doing it with the Mustang and Mustang Mach-E. At this point,
The what?
Well, the whole reason I said it is because it has to tie into the name for this point. The whole reason,
go on.
the whole reason Ford did this was to play off the Mustang name to sell cars. If they just made it something else, which we all would have preferred, maybe they don't sell as many. That's the reasoning Ford did this, right? So Chevy, why aren't they doing the same thing? Because if you just bring something to market as a fastback SUV and call it the Camaro, the only people that know that name or have any sort of history towards that name are the muscle car, sports car crowd. And that is almost 0% of your buyer base. Because I can almost guarantee that you might get 100 sales from those people every year. Now, other regular consumers, of course, will buy it. But if there's no heritage to the name that's currently in the market, i.e. having a sister car that's a pony car, sports car, whatever, then what? Again, why not just call it something else? Like call it the Nova, call it the whatever, call it a long since defunct name, or make up a new one. You don't need to call it a Camaro. Why? There's I don't think calling it a Camaro is going to help you sell cars, like in a sense. The same way that I don't think that Ford calling it the Mustang Mach-E helped them sell that car either. Like they could have just called it the Mach-E. Didn't need Mustang as part of the name. They really didn't. And they don't need a Camaro as a name for this either, quite frankly. The other side of it is, as an electric car, that actually is slightly more palatable because eventually, and it's not going to be anytime soon, but eventually, over the next 100, 200, 300 years, petroleum products will be a thing of the past. Internal combustion eventually will die off. Like, that's just an inevitability. We don't have infinite resources on this planet. We have to find alternate sources of fuel if we want to continue to go places over the next several thousand years. However, a electric car is a bit more palatable in that sense because electric cars semi have some performance pedigree now, whereas fastback SUVs exceptionally do not have a performance pedigree.
Well, even if they do, it's compromised performance.
Correct, exactly. So a EV sports car sounds much more appealing than a fastback SUV with a Camaro name because, well, it's not a Camaro. If you're going to have a Genesis to the name, the EV makes more sense because there is some performance behind that. You can make that a bit more performance focused in the sense of, well, electric cars have instant torque down low. Like we know that with the Tesla, like the Model S Plaid. I mean, it's a 6,000 pound rocket sled. Like there's some performance there. Like you can't just say, no, there's not. Like that's not correct. So having a Camaro name as an EV, fine. Yes, that's fine. It's an inevitability again, whatever. But again, why are you calling it a Camaro? Just call it something else. You don't need to use the name. So to me, this is a cheap and tawdry play on a name that doesn't necessarily need to be resurrected. Whereas like you could still resurrect it, but keep the sports car component of it and just call it.
Here we go. Try again. You cut
Hello?
out. Yeah.
Okay. So just have the Camaro as your performance car and have this thing and call it something else. Call this the RS. Don't have an RS trim for a Camaro. That's a really easy concept. Like the Chevy RS, the Chevy, Rally Sport. Like, cool. That's a great name for a car, especially something that's a fastback SUV.
Duran was neither a Duran nor a Duran.
Rhode Island was neither a road nor an island. Discuss. But that's right. You know where I'm going with that. So, like for me, this just seems like it just stop. This is the same thing that happens in Hollywood. Stop making sequels. We don't need them. Just think of something original, please, and just make it better. Or don't even make it better. Make it interesting and original. Car companies, do that. Make it interesting and original. Don't fucking call it a Camaro. You don't need to. End discussion.
I agree with all of your points. However, I can expound. I disagree with one. But, Greg, do you know what the word Camaro actually means?
We talked about this a while ago. So I'm going to say yes, but I've forgotten.
So, sort of party line stance on it is that it's from an English French meaning like friend, pal, or comrade.
Mm-hmm.
However, during its launch, a Chevrolet product manager was asked what Camaro means. And the guy jokingly said, a small vicious animal that eats Mustangs.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
A crossover is neither small, vicious, or let's face it, all that hungry. If we're saying a food source being, fuel.
Yeah.
So, like, by definition, it's not a Camaro. Now, to your point about
Correct.
a small it being an electric car, I get where you're coming from with it being quote unquote more palatable. But at the end of the day, people don't want that either.
Yeah.
Just go ask Stelantis how that worked.
Yeah.
Ask them how putting a classic name on an electric vehicle was just galactically stupid.
Yep. Correct.
And a massive failure. There's that sort of stuff. But speaking of the Charger, and obviously the Mustang, there is a Here's the thing. Camaro goes away. Charger becomes what the Charger became. Now the only real pony car, and I understand the original Charger was never a pony car. However, in this sense, in today's world, it's kind of a competitor, even though it's not. But it's trying to be. That left Mustang by themselves. And they're like, what do we do? Well, here's the Dark Horse. That got more expensive. Here's the GTD. Obviously ridiculously expensive. Here's the Dark Horse SC, blah, blah, blah. And Mustang prices have been going up and up and up. Obviously, some of that is just the general car market going up. Some of that is the fact that Mustang has no competition. So like we said, they're competing with themselves. So they're trying to do everything. It's like, well, we've already got a great engine. What else can we improve upon? Okay, let's tweak this. Blah, 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 blah. But then they're finding ways to make improvements to justify selling the new model or whatever. And the price goes up. We've mentioned it here on the show before. That if the Camaro was to ever make a comeback, being something with let's just put a 6.2 liter LT in there. 460 horsepower. Make it not massively smaller, but smaller than the Mustang. And have it. And because not only is there a gap, is Ford creating a gap for that because of the way the Mustang pricing has gone, Chevy has created that with the way the Corvette has gone. So there is a massive gap that Chevy can fill without having to worry about Challenger or Charger or whatever taking their sales from them. Especially now. If they were to come out and say, here's the new Camaro. It's like the old one. However, we're scaling things down a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more, pick a marketing word here. And it would have been I don't know how long it would have lasted, but it would have been a massive 5-year success.
Right.
Massive. And if over the years they wanted to add a track focus like a Z28 or a supercharged, whatever, fine. But really the end goal is to just get back in there, be better than a Mustang while being smaller and cheaper. And I think a lot of people would really resonate with that.
Yeah.
Even more than your diehard GM fans. The second thing is, again, back to that naming thing. It's literally not a Camaro. I don't care if it's an electric car. I don't care if it's an electric crossover. And the crossover, to your point, anybody who recognizes the name Camaro is going to take one look at it and be like, that is not a Camaro. So you're going to have a completely different market of people buying it. So what the fuck's the point of the name? I personally think that if you're going to bring a name back from the pages of history and you want to do sort of a, what the fuck did they describe it as? A fastback crossover?
Yeah.
I know it's not exactly a fastback, but what's a famous wagon from General Motors' past? Chevy's past specifically. I'll give you a hint. They crushed a replica of one of these on Home Improvement with an I-beam.
Oh, I don't remember that episode at all. But the Roadmaster?
The Nomad.
Nomad, thank you.
The Nomad came in a 2-door, so it was basically what we would call a
Chevy.
shooting brake.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Roadmaster was like the fake wood paneling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the Nomad was sort of a sporty wagon, what we would call a shooting brake today. What is the I know it's not a wagon, but what is the modern equivalent of that style of car? It's the crossover.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yes, I know hot rodders love their Nomads. I get all of that. And I understand there's still a small amount of sacrilege here. However, the Nomad is very popular in a very small segment. And the marketing would absolutely write itself. Classic Nomad, your grandfather, your grandmother drove one, whatever. For the modern age. And it starts to make a little more sense. But if you're just going to come out with a crossover, or just going to come out with a range of Camaros that are all electric, maybe 0.1% of Camaro enthusiasts, maybe,
that's what I'm saying,
they actually give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Totally
so at that point, you've just launched a brand new EV line that you have to just convince EV people to buy.
Which is your target market.
Which again, at that point, you could name it the Chevrolet Turd Burglar 9000.
Please don't, by the way.
But no, like I said, look, I'll freely admit, throughout the entirety of my life, when it comes to the pony cars, Mustang's the one I like the most. It is what it is. But I'm not a hater on Mopar. I'm not a hater on AMC, on GM at all. I would absolutely 100% buy a manual WS6 Trans Am. 1,000% would buy. And then put a pissed off 427 cubic inch V8 in it. But again, you see the trend with the way the Mustang is going. Something needs to reel that back in. Something needs to take market share other than them pricing their core demographic out of the equation.
Yeah.
That can only come from two places at this point in time. Chevy, Dodge. Dodge shot themselves in the foot, looked at it, saw the wound was getting infected, and thought, I can fix this. And then they shot themselves in the other foot. Is a Hellcat version coming? We all know that to be true, yes. However, that's again going to be at a price point that a lot of pony car enthusiasts just can't get to.
Yeah.
Camaro could have slotted right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. So
yeah, agreed. But that leads to a really good parlay to the next, or one of our next topics was utilizing old names in new cars, because the Prelude just came out, right? And we don't have to talk about this and belabor this because we've talked about it a lot, but have you looked at the article that I sent you about it?
Looked, yes. Comprehended, memorized. I'll be 100% honest with you. I looked at the article. I saw the numbers. I saw the sales. I saw all of that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just a general Honda sales thing. To piggyback off of the success we had on the Toyota sales success reel we did not too long ago. You did not
right.
too long ago.
Right. But did you see the actual numbers for the Prelude?
I saw that there were, in fact, numbers next to the Prelude.
Do you remember what the number was?
Greater than 0.
Yes. So they have sold a few.
Literally a few. It's only 3.
Yeah. well, you're not that far off.
Less than 10x that number.
so the category it's in, Honda divisions, right? So we have your cars, Accord, Civic, Prelude, cool. Then you have CRV, HRV, Odyssey, all your family stuff.
The fuck is the Prologue?
The Prologue is the EV venture that they did with GM and then immediately canceled it because they realized that GM's EV platform it was on was absolute garbage. So they were like, nope, 1 year this, later. And now they're developing their own EV platform.
And yet it still sold 3x compared to the Prelude.
Yeah, so Honda Accord, 12,739 units. Robust, strong numbers. Civic, 16,563. good numbers. Down a little bit percentage-wise, but many thousands sold. Honda Prelude, 216. Literally nobody wants this car. Like, no one asked for it. No one, again, what you could have done is just made it a Civic hybrid, and it would have sold way better. But instead, you name it Prelude, and anywhere outside of Japan, no one gives a shit. Because what you've done, again, the thing with the Camaro, the thing with the Mach-E, the thing with the Prelude, the thing with the Eclipse Cross, you're using these names that you've had in your past to play on them to make sales, and none of it's working. So where are the executives and where are the marketers that are supposed to be giving these companies good advice when they say, oh, we should bring back the Prelude? Yeah, that's a good idea. And everyone goes, yes, that is a good idea. What do we make it? Let's make it a two-door hybrid with no manual transmission, zero performance pedigree, and it's not fun to drive. And oh, by the way, it costs $45,000.
Which is moronic, because when you consider the fact that you can go find a Acura Integra Type S manual. I don't think there's anything other than the manual, but just
not an accurate trim, no.
With less than 20,000 miles, so basically new.
Yep.
For the same price.
Yep. 100%.
However, when it comes to the Prelude, I do disagree with you on one front. I think that you had the order of operations backwards. I think they sat here and thought, okay, we can make this car. It can be basically a Civic hybrid, but we want to make it a little sportier. Mm-hmm. So we'll give it some Type R stuff.
Yeah.
You know, literally the easiest, simplest, like, you know.
Yeah.
Stuff to put on it.
Slap these things on it, yes.
You know. And everybody's like, that's kind of a cool idea. That's a good car. It gets, you know, it's kind of it's not quite a Type R. It's not quite a regular Civic. If we give it a little bit of a body kit, it'll be a little sporty. It's a sporty Civic, but it's not the full Type R. What does that sound like to you? Sounds like an SI. The only problem is putting the hybrid drivetrain in it makes it way too expensive to have that nameplate. Mm-hmm. So they're like, what do we call it? Now, you could have called it any number of things. You could have even called it the Type H or like the Type E or something.
Yeah.
That lets people know that this is more than your average Civic.
Yep.
But then, because, like, to your Hollywood point, these people are lazy. And they don't want to come up with new stuff. And they think, you know what? And, like, they're almost thinking about it backwards. They're thinking, hey, let's tease to the world we're bringing back the new Prelude. That'll buy us probably about 18 to 24 months of really positive buzz. People talking about Honda, talking about, you know, the glory days, bringing up stuff like the Prelude, like the stuff that they made in the early 2000s and stuff. Like all this stuff that is going to hit at the Honda nostalgic. It's going to hit at those people who remember those cars, and more importantly, were alive when those cars were new and old enough to know what they were, who are now our age, who are now the people, let's face it, with the money.
Correct.
Who are going to potentially be willing to buy a $45,000 Civic.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, I honestly think that if they completely whiffed on the styling.
Oh, for sure. The styling is not good at all.
I understand it has to fall within their sort of brand ethos, but fuck, even in its day, the Prelude never looked like any other Honda. You know, and And look, I get that if they had done that, the price would have been even higher or what have you. So like it's all these things where it's like we could do this, but it's too expensive for that. Okay, if we gave it this name, we have to do this, this, and this, and now it's too expensive. Full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Which when you reach that particular part of when you reach that particular, intersection, whether it be in marketing, whether it be in business, or whether it be in just brand creation, the lazy thing is to call it something old, hope you get the buzz, and hope the buzz carries you.
Right.
Because let's face it, they're not really spending a lot of money on this car developmentally.
No.
Production-wise. Like, they could turn production off tomorrow, and it'll cost them some money, but it's not like they have an entire production facility dedicated to Preludes, nor would it take all that much to take such a facility and convert it to be making Civics or whatever.
Right.
So it does bring up the question, if this was called something else, something new, something original, would it sell better? Yes and no. Because at the end of the day, it's still a $45,000 Civic. That is a hard sell for anything that doesn't have an Acura, Type R, or Type S badge on it.
Yeah.
Although good news is at hand for Honda. Did you know that the Prelude sold 201 more units than the Acura ZDX, which sold 15 units?
Yes, which is insane that they're still selling the ZDX.
The TLX also didn't have a great year, 368 units.
Well, the TLX is discontinued,
So literally a discontinued model is outpacing one of Honda's new most hyped vehicles.
Yep, you got it. Nailed it.
Oh, man. I mean...
Well, that's
the thing. That's the thing. And this is going to be... I saw this... what's Doug DeMuro's podcast?
Cars and Bids?
Is that what the podcast is called? I have no idea.
Oh, the podcast. I have no idea. Didn't even know he did a podcast these days.
Yeah.
All I know is him and Cars and Bids. That's it.
No, they do a podcast. And this fits in with the Prelude, right? Like, so the last generation Prelude to the current one, massive letdown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, crazy letdown, right? So the premise of the question that they asked was, what car from one generation to the next was the biggest letdown? You know, they used like their, because they're all like, high-end car guys or whatever, they were using like, the Mercedes C63, which, yeah, sure. Turbocharged V8, turbocharged four-cylinder hybrid fucking thing that weighs as much as a small yacht.
Yeah.
Like, I get that. But in your estimation, and you can't use the examples I provided, nor can you use the Prelude.
Mm-hmm.
While Chad takes a quick fiver.
I already know my answer to this.
Topic for the day is, what car, I don't even know what you want to call it, got the most worst? The most worst?
the most worstest from one generation to the next.
But you get the idea. What car
from
generation to the next generation went from being yes to, oh, I can't believe they made that.
Yeah. No, it's good.
And chat, play along, and
yes,
I'll be there.
Yeah, drop it in the comments too. What do you guys think? Because I'm gonna, as Chad does this, I'm going to bring up chat so I can see your answers. But as I do that, I will answer this. So there's a bunch of different options here that I'm going to go with, or that I could go with. Excuse me. Every time he leaves, I just start yawning. No, so there's a bunch of different things I could answer with here, but there are two specific ones that I think will really stand out. One of them being the Subaru WRX, actually, because interestingly enough, when you had back in 2007, you had the Hawkeye version of the WRX, the WRX STI, what have you. It was a great car, one of the all timers as far as far as the Subaru faithful are concerned. Everyone, and I mean almost everyone, universally loves that version of the WRX and STI. They are, in my opinion, the best looking and one of the better performing ones. And then you went from that awesome sedan to the hatchback. And the hatchback, I owned one in 2014. They gave it the wide body in 2011. Great, which was like the STI wide body. But the WRX specifically, because the STI in 2008 always had the wide body the way my car did. But the WRX did not. And it was pig ugly. It is that hatchback generation of Impreza and WRX, because they were basically the same thing. One had a hood scoop and go fast bits, the other didn't. Was one of the biggest letdowns in automotive history as far as like, oh, new WRX, what the hell is that thing? Almost everyone universally wanted the STI because it looked so much better because it had that wide bodiness to it. And I get why they did it. They wanted that body differentiation between the WRX and the STI. Either way, it was horrific. And everyone was like, this is one of the worst cars I've ever seen. I'm never buying it. And it sold tremendously bad in the first year or two. They also had a lot of problems with the 08 and 09s. 2010, it got better. And then 2011, when they got the wide body, they finally kind of figured out the foibles. And 2011 plus, it was a great car. Sort of a lesser known one because obviously, you know, it's not a car that you would think of, right? The biggest one, I think, is in the Mustang realm, and Chad probably, if he's watching, knows which one I'm going to be talking about, is from the original Mustang to the Mustang 2. They tried to make the Mustang 2 basically a secretary's car, and they tried to turn the Mustang into a secretary's car, and that to me is the biggest letdown from one generation to the other. Because if you look at the original Mustang, beautiful. Has pony car, muscle car pedigree, has sports car pedigree, has sportiness to it, has an iconic shape, just an icon all around as it grew and morphed over the years in that first generation. The second generation was a biblical failure in every way. It was slow. It was horrifically ugly. It was not a Mustang. And there are some apologists for it that say, oh, but there were some redeeming qualities to it. Blah blah blah. No, there really aren't many redeeming qualities to that car. To be quite frank, it is one of the worst, if not the worst, letdown from one generation to another ever, literally ever in the entirety of the automotive industry. I'm sure there are other examples that I'm forgetting of when a car was just a car and then it completely changed from one generation to the next. Not necessarily like being from a four-door to a two-door or being a car to an SUV. But there are other examples, I'm sure I'm forgetting, where the car legitimately changed in every facet, like rear wheel to all wheel or rear wheel to front wheel. And I'm not remembering them, but that generation of WRX and that generation of Mustang, first to second, those two really stand out in my mind because they were so different than their predecessors in the worst way imaginable, that those are probably the two that I would say are the worst in that sense. And we have Chad coming back in, and I'm going to do the same thing and take my fiver. But Chad, what about you? Do you agree with those? And if so, why or why not? And then what are yours, or what is yours? Did you hear my Any chance?
I think I understood you with the Subaru WRX and the fact that when it first switched to that body style, the hatch was narrow body.
Correct. Yes.
Newsflash, the wide body was still pig ugly too.
I disagree with that because I
I
really
know
like
you
that
do.
car, but
We've had this
yeah, but
repartee.
the
The
regular
other
one was Yuck City for sure.
the other one, I'm going to disagree with one tiny part of it and then
Okay.
provide some context.
Yeah.
My answer is your second answer. It is the Mustang 2. It is always the
Yeah.
Mustang 2. It will forever be the Mustang 2. To your point about it being quote unquote the secretary's car, well, there's literally advertising for the original Mustang, and I quote, the perfect car on a secretary's salary.
Yeah, I remember that, and I remember that being part of the Ford
And
versus Ferrari movie too.
Shelby famously said about the Mustang when he first got his hands on it, or when he was first approached by it, said, again, rather embarrassingly, you can't turn a mule into a racehorse. But thanks to Shelby and some other engineers, the original Mustang became a legend, and obviously, the Mustang is still here.
Yeah.
The Mustang 2, number 1. Now, Mustangs up until the S550 famously always shared platform with other cars in the Mustang lineup.
You keep going. I shall return.
The original Mustang very famously was based on a Falcon. The Mustang 2 was based on a Pinto. Whatever you want to label the Mustang as, pony car, sports car, muscle car, what have you. Pony car, muscle car, sports car, all things that don't that exactly describe the Pinto, not at all. And to make things even worse, the first few years of the Mustang 2, your engine options were an anemic 4-cylinder engine, a slightly less anemic 6-cylinder engine, and that's it. A Mustang with no V8 option. That is, and look, I understand now. I understand that we're talking about the oil crisis years. We're talking about the ridiculously choked engine regulations of that era. Literally what killed the muscle car. Literally the era where we were having big block V8s make maybe 250 horsepower. Maybe. So the Mustang had to be, quote unquote, economical. And even though it's probably the car I hate the most in this world, it did its job. It sold. It was a sales success for Ford. Now, if it sounds like I'm defending the Mustang 2, I very much apologize, because I absolutely fucking loathe that car. I think the only thing that it contributed to automotive culture in a meaningful and positive way was the front subframe and I think the suspension setup that hot rodders used in a bunch of different cars. That's it. The engines weren't good. It's not even like, let's just take, for example, like the C4 Corvette. The 350 small blocks in those were very meh. However, if you get a later C4 or middle to later C4, do a heads, cam, intake manifold with a good exhaust, you can knock on the door at 400 horsepower. It's pretty damn good out of a, Chevy small block. Even when the King Cobra came around with the V8 engine, nobody is taking that engine and messing with it. The other cars that I can think of that sort of fit that bill would be obviously the Charger. You go from arguably, now I know it was a Ford. You could say it happened with the Charger twice. It recovered once, but it didn't recover the second time. And what I mean by that is when the original, well, not the original, but when the Charger made its comeback to the modern four-door Charger, everybody, when it came out, that was a Mopar enthusiast, said basically the same thing. It's got four doors. It's not a real Charger. Now, the problem was that the Charger was always the full-size car. It just so happens that back in the 60s and 70s, actually, I'm going to have to backtrack, because you had the 60s and 70s Charger, and then it became a front-wheel drive thing, which is arguably worse. It is definitely worse, isn't it? So yeah, that's took me a minute to get there, but that's what I mean. You had those going to that. But the four-door Charger that we all know from our era that eventually got a Hellcat in it was actually very beloved amongst Mopar fans. And then it got replaced by the EV straight six monstrosity that we have now. And boy, howdy, was it a failure. A2D over on YouTube goes, the perfect car in a secretary's salary now is a clapped out Altima. Yeah, probably. Depends on who you're secretarying for. Secretary. Anyway, other cars that sort of... Whoa, that's weird. That kind of sort of fit that bill. Why is this not... weird. Anyway, what are some other cars that sort of fit that bill? I don't believe this, but if you ask certain individuals, they'll say that about C7 to C8 Corvette. Now again, the C8 Corvette is objectively, apart from lacking a manual, which is a fairly large deal, but from a pure, if aliens came down and looked at both cars, the C8 is a better car in every way. It's not the one I would have, but it's better. But to Corvette purists and enthusiasts, well, I would even say just purists, putting the engine in the back was pure sacrilege. You know, again, you have to realize that was always GM's plan, was to put the engine in the middle. They just couldn't do it at a price point that was palatable for a Corvette until recently. Obviously, Eclipse to Eclipse Cross. That's it's pretty fucking terrible. I don't know the true line in the sand, but if you go from like the heyday of Subarus to what they are now, I would even argue as a brand, Subaru 10 years ago to what Subaru is right now is pretty fucking disappointing. Yeah, you have the BRZ. Yeah, the modern engines are, I guess, technically stronger and better. But I don't know. They lack Subaru-ness to me. Let's see here. Sean goes, what about the Ford Fairmont? Don't know enough about them to make any sort of commentary on that. Let's see here. Or for modern cars, Sean continues, the Hyundai Sonata would be a Oh, you're talking about secretary cars. There we go. The Sonata would be a secretary car, or a used Genesis from before Genesis became its own brand. Passat or even CC even. I don't know. To be 100% honest, secretary car, in my estimation, right now, if we're just talking something economical and It's a crossover. I'm sure there are secretaries out there, not casting dispersions on the profession at all, but I'm sure there's secretaries out there who are car enthusiasts. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the overwhelming majority are not. So they're probably in some kind of crossover. So I would say a CRV, RAV4, pick one. Let's see here. A2D, Chevy Blazer, that's a great one. That's one, the full... You had the full-size K Blazer, the K10 Blazer, all the way down through the one that had the more, like, sharp nose from our youth, or what have you. Still a good truck. To whatever it became with the crossover. I mean, we all know how we feel about crossovers. And to use A2D's exact words, it was once a competitor for the Wrangler and the Bronco, but nope, let's have a unibody mall crawler. Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's see here. Cars that were a disappointment when compared to their previous generation. Let's look at... I would argue that period of time between the second generation Lexus IS and the ISF, simply because the original IS 300 was such an absolutely ahead of its time, beautiful, timeless design, both inside and out. You could legitimately, with a couple extra little bells and whistles here, actually, you wouldn't even need that. You could legitimately take the gauge cluster, the TAC, and the Speedo from the IS300 and put it into something modern, and it wouldn't look out of place. And then to the next generation, it just sort of looked bleh. It looked like a slightly spicy Camry. It had no manual option. It had a 2.5 liter 6 and a 3.5 liter 6. Didn't really try to do sporty all that much. It had some sportiness to it, but not much. Obviously, that all changed when the ISF came around. And the ISF led to the IS 500, which, I'm not going to lie, big fan of. Excuse me. Okay, we're caught up there. What else? Cars that were disappointments. Let me just... I could make the argument of the Volvo S or V60 after Greg's car. The twin-charged versions, which were okay, overly complicated, and then to what they eventually became, which were very good-looking cars, very decent interiors, but all of that fun Swedish sportiness was gone. Greg, your thoughts?
I did not hear that. Sorry.
We went through a bunch. We talked
audio.
about like the Chevy Blazer, the Dodge Charger, and not in the direction I originally thought I was going to go, but from the 60s muscle car to literally a 2-door front wheel drive thing. Mm-hmm. But I ended with the Volvo S60 V7 or V60 after your generation. Sort of lost its quirkiness. It just became another car. Yeah, it had a twin-charged 4-cylinder, which was definitely different, but overly complicated.
Yeah.
And it lost some of that Volvo soul to me. Very good cars, very good looking cars, very nice interiors, arguably the best in the business for their era.
Mm-hmm.
But and as Volvos, I guess they were good. But to a Volvo enthusiast, it's sort of just like, it's not really the brand anymore. Or not what.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I get that. I would say that. I mean, I would go the opposite direction. I think the generation after my car is the better car overall in every way. It's better looking. It's better interior. Better infotainment. As a general car, as a performance car, no, mine is definitely better. It's lighter. It has a better sound. Has a better engine.
Has more personality.
Has more personality. I agree. But as a car, the Thor's hammer headlight version is definitely a better V60 for sure. And it's like, it's in my opinion objectively way more beautiful. To me, that generation of V60 is one of the best looking wagons of all time. But it is definitely a deviation from the Volvo ethos, like you said, for sure. It was more geared towards luxury and bringing it into that next generation, as opposed to having that Volvo quirk to it. It was more of a car you'd forget in the sea of other luxury cars than a standout Volvo quirkiness car, which I think my version has that a little bit left in it, and then it just sort of went away in that next gen. I agree with that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely an interesting topic of conversation. It was just funny watching Doug DeMuro and those guys take on it, just because like that's kind of, it's gonna sound bad. This is gonna sound bad because I genuinely like the dudes. I like their content, but like Doug, to a lesser extent, Doug and Hoovy have this air. And again, I've never met them, so it's just purely how I'm interpreting their persona in the virtual world or screen world, right? Like how you guys are viewing us right now, right? But I don't know. Arrogance isn't the right word, but it's like there's a sense that you absolutely know that they know more about cars than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And they know it, right?
There's that air to it, yes.
So, I don't, and it kind of annoyed me because like all the cars there, like one of the ones they said was C2 to C3 Corvette, which, yeah, if you're comparing the last generation of C2 Corvette to the last generation of C3 Corvette, yeah, that's a big drop off in performance. I do think the C2 looks better, but the C3 isn't bad looking, and it set a design language for Corvette that lasted C3, C4, C5, C6, C7. Can all trace that sort of pointed nose, hunched arches on the front, all the way back to the C3.
Mm-hmm.
And when it originally came out in the late 60s, it got some pretty ridiculous engines. It came with a 500 plus horsepower L88, the big block, by the way, or what have you. But like, it's just like, it was interesting. And then they were, I'll send you a link to the video because actually I should just post it in chat as opposed to just being like, yeah, I'll share it with Greg and only Greg, so none of you can watch it and formulate an opinion. Just take what I say and deal with it. Doug's voice annoys me. I don't know why. Again, nothing against the guy. From everything I've heard, he's a great guy. Same thing applies to Hoovy. Same thing. By the way, I went through and like the first 3 or 4 videos on my E46 M3 on the channel looking for his comment. It's gone.
Nice.
Whatever. At any rate, here's that. Let's go back to here. Got it. It always cracks me up when I go to comment on the live, and it tells me, please adhere to shifting lanes guidelines, blah, 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 blah. Like, I am shifting lanes. I am the Senate. You know, like stop asking me. It's the same thing with the collab stuff.
I am the brand.
I am Iron Man. All right, touch on a couple more things from chat, and then we can move on to probably our last topic of the evening, whichever one of those you want to actually talk about. A2D goes. Also, the entire brand. It started off with unique designs meant to compete with the Japanese. By the time the brand died, they were just rebadged Chevys. The Saturn story is actually one of the most fascinating and fascinating. I don't know. It's fascinating if you look at it from a marketing and business standpoint, which Greg and I both do for our day jobs. So it's like one of those kind of interesting case studies. Back before Saturn, GM could not make a small car to compete with anyone to save their life. They made some cool cars, the Beretta, like all this stuff, but objectively compared to any of their competition, they were pretty bad. And GM themselves acknowledged it, and thus the Saturn brand was born. Basically, they were going to have all new light people. It's like, hey, you guys go over here. We have people who've worked on small car projects for other companies with you. You guys go do your thing, make small cars that are affordable, yada, yada, yada. Do your thing. And it was pretty successful. It used, obviously, GM parts to keep costs down, but it wasn't... It was a fresh take on small cars from a General Motors brand. Mm-hmm. And it did okay. Until the accountant stepped in and goes, you know how this could be even more okay? You, the engineers, get out.
Yes.
Styling department, you stay. Here's our lineup of Chevys and Pontiacs. Here are the cars you can redesign from a body standpoint, and that's going to be your new brand lineup. So it lost a lot of its charm, and it fell into the same thing. And there was a time where one GM platform was the Chevy Cobalt, the Saturn Ion?
Yes.
And the Pontiac G5. Same exact car.
Yep.
I could blindfold you and put you in a car and duct tape over any emblems that would give it away. Mm-hmm. And you'd think you were in the same car. So,
yeah.
Sean apparently wants a P3 V70. They're uncommon. Sadly, only came with 3.2 as far as I know. Yeah, I mean, just make yours into a wagon. You're into that sort of stuff.
They had the 3.0 as well.
Yeah.
So
Volvo lost. I'll be 100% honest. Volvo lost me when they stopped making manuals.
So 2008, got it.
Sorry.
There you go.
I like Greg's car is great fun to drive. It screams put a third pedal in me.
It does, yeah.
Because
small fun wagon.
It's
quick.
For
a manual.
It's fun. It handles well. It has good acceleration. It makes the right noises. Blah blah blah. It's just not overpowered, which means a manual would make it more interesting. But at any rate,
yeah,
I don't want to crap on Greg's car because I genuinely do like it.
That's okay.
Greg, what are we talking about next?
I think we should talk about the Volkswagen thing because it is very interesting. In the sense that everyone seems to be backtracking a lot on the whole let's go EV. And Volkswagen basically just came out, and I mean we've been going through the motions of like, oh, everyone's going EV and now they're backtracking, and everyone's going EV and then they're backtracking. Volvo's backtracking. Everyone, but VW basically just came out and said that they are committing to gasoline engines long term in their hot hatches, and that the Golf R might be getting even more power. Now, I want your opinion on this first before I sort of speak my mind here. The news itself is that hot hatches and, well, I mean, basically all commuter cars that everyone's trying to go like hybrid or EV or whatever, but Volkswagen basically just came out and said electric GTIs are definitely like on the horizon, but they want enthusiasts to basically know that internal combustion is not going anywhere, and they can basically live alongside of each other. They have an updated engine. It's going to comply with the Euro 7 standard, which then will translate to global markets. So with all of this said, and all of this, like, blustering, I think I know what your answer is going to be, but is this a smart move considering how so many other markets, especially Europe, because they are moving very heavily into EVs regardless? Do you think this is a smart move by Volkswagen, or do you think this is something that's just prolonging the inevitable?
I think it's a hedging their bets move. I think without getting, and I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds, but there's a monumental pendulum swift here every 4 years. I'll leave you guys to figure out as to the why.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's literally a thing. So, any auto manufacturer, I mean, shit, you're seeing it with the Chinese companies trying to get into Canada, and our president has said, hey, if you want to build the cars here or pay the tariffs, bring on the Chinese cars into our country. No problem whatsoever. So, American market is a must-have market for any serious car company that wants to do any sort of significant numbers or significant sales, even down to companies like your Koenigsegg's, your Pagani's, your small volume hypercar manufacturers. America's a huge market. So, on the one hand, like you said, you have Europe, who's going a little more, who's leaning more into the electric side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually makes a ton of sense, because let's just say, hypothetically speaking, how long does it take to drive from what is the longest route you can take from one side of England or the United Kingdom to the other side? It's like somewhere between 6 or 9 hours.
Yeah.
To traverse,
it's a bunch of hours.
To traverse the entirety of the country.
Yeah.
More or less. It's not as it's not as much wide open spaces as it is here in the United States. So, like, the fact that it's catching on makes a lot of sense. And Europe is able to utilize more public transportation than we are, because let's face it, yeah, New York City or big cities, yes, it makes sense. But to get from New York to Boston to Charlotte, North Carolina, to St. Louis to Los Angeles, right? There's a lot of space. I mean, you could be driving for 13 hours, start in Texas, and still be in Texas.
Yes.
So,
correct.
That makes sense. And a Golf EV also makes sense. It's the perfect size for it. Not too big, not too small. Perfect size. It's hot. In case you didn't know, hatchbacks were kind of the crossovers in Europe before small crossovers became the thing over in Europe. So it's a huge deal in Europe. And we've tried so hard to get hot hatches to catch on here, and they just haven't. I have a thought on that, but I'll save that for the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they are making EVs already for the Golf platform means they're ready should the pendulum swing again here.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no denying the fact, and if Andrew Kaiser's still in this, still in the chat, he can absolutely attest to this. The model you want is either the GTI with the internal combustion engine, or the Golf R, or, God, if they were just to make that Golf R S or whatever with the Audi 5-cylinder. Those are the ones you want. Those are the ones you covet. Those are the ones that have been kind of carrying the Golf name here in this country. Excuse me. So it also makes sense for Volkswagen to invest a little money to meet certain emission standards. In fact, if any company should do it, regardless of what market they're trying to do it, should probably be Volkswagen. So it just makes sense. Like I said, it just makes sense. Actually saw that one coming. So I don't think I think it's just a smart business move. Sorry guys, let me just get Greg back here. Why did it disappear? And here's the thing. I could sit here and pound on my chest and sit here and say internal combustion is not going anywhere. I could sit here and tell you that internal combustion is the only way to have a hot hatch. And I could sit here and tell you how I feel about all of that because that's what I prefer. And a lot of enthusiasts prefer it. And a lot of enthusiasts, when it comes to that type of car, prefer internal combustion. It just adds to the experience. I don't know why it does that. If it didn't take 9 years and a day for Streamlabs to respond to a ticket, I'd open one. But at the end of the day, it's just a smart move. You're not going full charger. Right. And completely alienating a customer base.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you're also prepared should the tides turn and the American market becomes more focused on EVs. Now, we've said here multiple times, and this is the last thing before I get into how to improve the hot hatch and make it sustainable for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Or not sustainable for the wrong word. Anyway, getting sidetracked. Shit, what was I going to say? God damn it.
You got this.
Long and short of it is that they're putting themselves in a good spot either way, whichever way it goes. The enthusiasts want internal combustion. Lawmakers may try to make that impossible. But also, this is what I was going to say. We might get to a point where, again, the goal for these emission regulations, the whole reason for electric cars, is try to reduce emissions output from vehicles on a consumer level. Well, guess what? A hydrogen fuel cell does that. Synthetic fuels do that. So in 3, 4, 5 years, who knows? Synthetic fuel could see a boom to the point where it's not everywhere, but it's starting to come up. Well, if you don't have an internal combustion engine that's modern enough to handle that fuel, you're going to be left behind by the people who do. So this is in a sense, Volkswagen, by sticking with internal combustion alongside of EV, they're future proof.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, what I think hot hatches need to do is we just went through a horsepower. It's like the hypercar, right? Or the supercar. Supercar got so powerful it became hypercar. Now they're really not drivable, or they are drivable, but you can't really have any fun with them on normal public roads. They're just way too powerful. That didn't happen with hot hatches, but what did happen is they had their own horsepower war, and that drove the price of them beyond the market, especially here in this country. In Europe, it's different. A four-door hatchback is a family car.
Right.
It's not here.
That's their RAV4 crossover, if you will.
So I maintain if you can avoid falling into the up trap, where you have the Volkswagen Up GTI, small, lightweight, not making a gigaton of horsepower, but makes enough to put your back into the seat when you push the throttle, enough to make it feel like it has enough power to have a little fun with, without looking like some cutesy little thing, right? That's the problem these small hatchbacks fell into. The Fiesta, the Up, etc. They got too cutesy. If you make them have a little bit more of a, and I hate to phrase it this way, but a more of a masculine jawline, right?
Yes.
Think, less George Russell, more Mark Webber.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
giving them more, and you gave an exciting engine, whether it be the three cylinder that calls the Corolla GR home, right? It doesn't make a ton of horsepower. It's not enormous. It's a small engine. You don't even have to make 300 horsepower. You can make 250 in a small car, and that would be an absolute riot. And what does that also do? Less power means less demand for fuel, means theoretically speaking, it will burn cleaner. It'll be more fun to drive. And now, again, you're serving all worlds. I don't think that's ever going to happen because, let's face it, Americans just don't do small cars.
No, they don't.
On the whole, full-size pickup trucks are the best-selling thing in this country. Enough said.
It has been forever. I agree with a lot of your points. I think that this is a really smart decision by Volkswagen, I'll be honest. Your point towards the end about synthetic fuel, I think that is sort of where I was going to go with my answer. Is I think that the companies that stave off a full EV switch, or at least a majority hybridization, and hybridization I think is still another good stopgap, while synthetic fuels are being produced. I think in the next 20, 30 years, they will be 100% come to fruition. I think that those companies are going to be set up best for the future. And I think Volkswagen committing to this is basically saying, okay, the next 5-ish years, we're gonna do this. We're gonna see what happens, and then sort of make our play after that. I think this is a really, really smart decision, and not just from an enthusiast standpoint, but from a knowing your audience standpoint. That people want internal combustion. They don't want to just give it up. They want freedom of choice. They want to be able to potentially have an EV. They want to potentially be able to still buy an internal combustion engine if they really want to. They don't want to be forced into this corner of it's either this or that, and it's only one of either one or two choices, which is hybrid, EV, mostly EV. And people want to have like, oh well, you know what? I'm gonna try an EV, and if I don't like it, I want to go back. But a lot of companies are like, well, you can't go back because we've gotten rid of all those cars. So that's a huge problem, because if someone wants to go back to what they had before, and it doesn't exist, they're going to go to another company that does have that. So Volkswagen giving them an option of performance hot hatches, and just in general hot hatches like the Golf, I think the GTI is approachable enough that it can be still performance oriented, but not necessarily be overwhelming for a general commuter. I think that's huge. And I think that this is a great platform to keep that on, because it makes it still very approachable from a monetization or from a monetary standpoint. It's not this behemoth of an SUV that is going to be the only last bastion of internal combustion, like an Escalade or something, right? But it gives them freedom of choice. You can have an electric vehicle if you truly want one, but there's also these offerings, and they're going to sell whether regardless. So I think that's huge, and this is this is a really good play in that sense, and it also shows that you don't have to just do a one singular switch to be a successful company. You can still work within the frameworks of what you have, what legislation has approved, and still make it work. Whereas we've been told otherwise by other powers that be the world over that we can't make it work. Well, bullshit, because you know what? There are companies that are making it work and will continue to make it work. So what does that tell you? It tells you it is a lot of bureaucracy in that sense. And, whether that pendulum swings one way or the other, the fact of the matter is that currently these cars won't be going away anytime soon within the next couple of years in this country. And they will very likely be continuing on for the 2 or 3 years, no matter what comes next. So, in that time frame, can we get a potential, not necessarily mass market, but to market synthetic fuel that is approachable, affordable, and could potentially help bring everything into the future? So that I think is going to be very interesting to watch. But I think this is a good move by Volkswagen, and I think a lot of other car manufacturers should follow suit. Quite frankly, I mean, Ford is really primed to do that. They don't have cars, like we said earlier. All they have is a Mustang. That's it. And then the other car they have is the Mach E, which is an EV. Like what they should do is they should bring back the few. Well, I mean,
yes.
I don't even see it as a crossover. It really, it is. It's classified as a crossover, but
it visually, it's designed to visually trick you.
I know, it is, because I've stood next to it at the auto show, and I'm like, this is lower than every single crossover I've ever been to, but it is designed to make you think it is, and it feels like just getting in a sedan, really does. But either way, they should bring back the Taurus or the Fusion and make that a hybrid offering, because I guarantee you they would sell multiple hundreds of thousands of them immediately off the bat because people want that. And it's not just another EV offering that people are going to be like, okay, I'll try it, and then want to go back, because there are multiple studies, not necessarily studies, but there's just demographics and stats behind this, which is like people that go EV, about 30 to 40% of them don't for their next car. They go immediately back to something that was internal combustion or hybrid. So it is a massive percentage of people that try it and don't like it and immediately go back.
Here's where I'll kind of end on that. And I think we had Red's Rhetoric and A2D kind of point to this over on YouTube. Red's Rhetoric goes, plug-in. The correct answer is plug-in hybrid EV for most things, gas for longer trips. Extra power, already proven concept in racing. Whole other subject. I'm not disagreeing with you by any stance. I just have fairly strong feelings on how it's implemented in certain motorsports. But
yes,
whatever, it's an opinion. We're all entitled to them. You can disagree. It's all good. And again, I'm not disagreeing with your actual comment. And then you had A2D. EV plus a range extender is a good option. Well, I believe that's how the Fisker Karma was set up. Yes, in fact, it was. Ram was going to do something like that in a pickup truck, as he mentioned as well. And then he goes, same with the new Scout. Gives you EV efficiency plus gasoline range. I mean, it's basically a way to... I mean, that's curing range anxiety, right? Your EV in case you need it. And then you have gasoline to get you wherever. I think both of those comments have validity. I think you're with this, talking about synthetic fuel, talking about hydrogen fuel cell, like all this other sort of stuff, right? The powers that be should not try to pigeonhole manufacturers into one. Like we've said it a bunch of times, should not be strictly EV, should not be strictly hydrogen fuel cell, should not be strictly hybrid or synthetic fuel. It shouldn't be just one of those as the solution going forward. That companies should be encouraged to pursue all of those paths. If a company wants to focus on just EV or just hybridization or just synthetic fuel, they should. Right? Because guess what? If that's all competing for the consumer's dollar, the technology involved will improve at an accelerated rate. If it's all just EVs, it's like, okay, here's our EV. I'm not saying EV technology is stagnant. It is far from it. I'm just saying you're not pushing yourself to prove that you're better than this other technology or what have you. And at the end of the day, you might end up in a situation where we have a bunch of hybrids running on synthetic fuel that is a net carbon zero or thereabouts. Obviously, it all depends on like the efficiency of being able to pull carbon out of the air. If it's a 1-to-1 from what a car emits, either way, still better than what we're doing right now. And it's a hybrid. Now we have a sustainable fuel. We have hybrid range, electric power, And we haven't, again, reinvented the wheel. Solid state batteries are just around the corner. You know, literally next year, I think, was Toyota and Ford's. One of them was saying 2027, which means we are going to start hearing about them probably in around April, if I had to guess.
I would agree with that.
You know, there's no one right answer. If you push the technology to be better because it has a rival, a rising tide raises all ships. And yeah, probably eventually there will be a winner. But if you just sit here and name the winner now, we're in lap 1 of 200 of the race to figure out what's going to replace, fossil fuels.
Yeah. It is in its infancy for sure.
I would argue that it is far more important to figure out all the other stuff that uses petroleum,
Yeah.
before cars.
Yes.
Plastic, fucking asphalt,
Oh my God.
Cosmetics, antihistamines, all of that stuff. Figure that out. And then let's circle back to cars.
Yeah.
But we have 3 good technologies. And again, Volkswagen's sort of sitting here saying, I'm covered whatever the way the wind shifts. Or if all 3 sort of become a popular thing and you now have the option, I'm not saying it's ever going to happen, but you have the option. Let's just say you have flex fuel is not the right word, but you have the option. You could run 20, you could have a tank 20% full with synthetic fuel, go to the pump, put in whatever gasoline in it, the car works. And now you have flexibility. Now there's a reason to have a car that runs on synthetic fuel, but even if it's not available in your area at first, like hydrogen fuel cell. Reason that's not taking off is because there's 4 stations in the entirety of California. One, literally the only one on the East Coast is in fucking Quebec, I think, or Montreal, one of the two.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
So that kills it. But if you have a situation that sort of blends it into, and then, let's just say 2030, it's 20%, of the gas, 20% of the gas stations. 5 years later, it's at 50. 5 years later, it's at all gas stations, right? Probably would be in a sort of, what's that? Not a straight line, a curve. Exponential growth. That's what I'm going with. Meaning that it'll start off slow, but as OEMs use it, as it becomes more popular, as it becomes more what have you, Joe's gas station is getting a lot of customers because it's got this new fuel. I better get my shit together and start carrying it. And it snowballs.
Yeah.
And I think Volkswagen saying, we got it, whatever you want. There's always going to be electricity. There's always going to be some, and there's probably going to be some sort of explosive liquid that's going to power our cars. We're good.
Yeah, you've talked about this a lot, about having a skateboard platform. I think this is the end game of the skateboard. It's one of everything, and you can literally put whatever you need into it, regardless of what the propulsion system is, and it is that ultimate skateboard. You can be like, oh, you want an EV? Cool, here you go. Same thing. Oh, you want a hybrid? Cool, it's ready to rock. Want the internal combustion? Got that too. Until they switch to all something different, like you said, hydrogen. Unless everything goes hydrogen, that's a different story. But for what we know,
but even then, hydrogen can be phased in through internal combustion.
True. That's true. So you're right. Even then, this is the ultimate skateboard platform. It is whatever you want in the car that you desire. Period. And if you don't like it, say you want the EV, you buy the EV. Cool. Didn't like that, but I loved the car. Good news. We got 2 other versions for you. We got 3 other versions for you. Why don't you try those?
They're consumer proof. We all know people.
Exactly. That's correct.
We want the performance model. You might want the GT. You might want the R. I'm going to hold out for the 5-cylinder thing. But our buddy down the street, he might like EVs.
Mm-hmm.
And all three of us will have a Golf.
Right.
Right?
The only thing here is like, what are the economies of scale in that sense? Like, is this profitable for them? Because if it's
Well,
not, they
considering how many
will.
Golfs they make.
Well, yeah.
And
I'm
you
just,
got to remember, stuff like the Tiguan is effectively a tall Golf.
pretty much
The Jetta is
Yep.
a Golf
the
without a hatch.
long golf.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think it scales just fine. Obviously, it's not going to scale as if you're in one thing.
Right.
But okay. But on the other side, there's an argument to be made that if you put all your eggs into one basket, the scale won't matter because you're not moving enough units to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Last thing I did want to touch on was A2D does ask a question, and he goes, "How do you think self-driving cars will impact the market?" I have a 3-year-old, and I wonder if he's ever going to want to drive if he doesn't have to. Just hail a ride from an app instead. I'll sort of touch this and then hand it off to you, Greg.
Yeah.
Also, I love the spy versus spy thing we got going on again tonight. All white on your end, all pretty much black on mine.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that. It's good. I like it. I like it. It's a very
As
yin
it
and yang.
pertains to self-driving cars, and your question specifically, whether or not your son is going to want to drive. Obviously, I can't answer that question, but you can look at the general populace and glean some insights. Obviously, as car enthusiasts, we are a certain segment of the population, not a large one percentage-wise, but enough to where obviously there are performance cars. Tuning is a thing, hot rodding, modifying, all that stuff are massive billion-dollar industries. That being said, Greg said it best. The vast majority of people look at the car the same way we look at a refrigerator. Refrigerator is a device to keep things cool, cold, frozen, etc. Car is a device to get me from point A to point B. Beyond that, it is simply an appliance. We don't form emotional attachment to our refrigerator. At least I hope so. And these people don't form that sort of attachment to their cars. It is literally nothing more than a appliance to do a job. I'm assuming, since you're watching this, that there is at least some level of enthusiasm on your end, if not you're a full-blown car enthusiast.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to wager that even if you don't, quote unquote, I don't want to say push that on him, but even if you're not like encouraging him to follow that path, just watching Dad be excited and interested about the cars and wanting to hang out with Dad and that natural child desire and everything, he's probably going to just, through some form of parental osmosis, pick up some level of enthusiasm.
Yeah, exactly.
That being said, my father was into art, and that huge swing and a miss on me. But you raise a good point. I mean, on the self-driving front, I think we are ways away from that being a mass-adopted form of, for lack of a better word, public transportation. I think there are just way too many hurdles for it to conquer. I know there's stuff like Waymo and other things like that, and small batches here and there, or what have you. But and that basically, you can't force enthusiasm. But again, I have a feeling that there's going to be some. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to your his financial means, your financial means, etc. And what I mean from that is can you afford to pay $10, $15, $20, $30 every time you want to go to a friend's house, to the store, to the XYZ? Or is it just more financial? Does it make better financial sense to have a relatively inexpensive yet reliable car. They still do exist. You can still find cars for under 10 grand, under 5 grand that are halfway decent. And from there, that'll sort of, dictate, you know. Like I said, I don't think we're anywhere near a future where it's going to be everybody's just sitting back in their car on the highway, reading something on their tablet or boinking their secretary, whatever. Get their cardio in before work. But
nice.
I don't think that's quite a thing. And even if it does become, it's obviously going to become more widespread, I think at a very slow rate. But even so, it's a new technology. It's a new thing. It has to be built up. So it's probably not going to be very cheap, is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, so he does continue. He goes, reason I ask is because I'm quite enthusiastic. I'd feel like I failed as a dad if my kid didn't want to know how to spin a wrench. But I wonder if the less enthusiastic would gladly migrate to self-driving cars. Like I said, I think if there's an enthusiasm to you, if there's a, where's Dad? Oh, he's out in the garage working on whatever. Junior's going to want to come up and say, hey, Dad, what are you doing? And, somehow I made it through, I don't know how many years of doing that with my dad, and all I did was hold a flashlight, and I love cars.
Yeah, so there you go. Even the smallest things, right?
Right. And so the little things, like when you're sitting on the couch and you're watching whatever form of motorsport you like, or YouTube content that you like, because car content on YouTube vastly superior to anything on TV. Right now.
That's correct.
By magnitudes, especially on, shifting lanes.
Yes.
Yeah,
self plug.
Great.
I agree with basically everything you said. I want to make one thing clear though. Currently, there is no such thing as self-driving. Whether anyone tells you so or not, it's not real. It doesn't exist. Self-driving is not a thing. It is not correct. Self-driving is the full ability for a car to go from A to B with zero human intervention, and that does not exist currently, nor will it. Waymo is still not self-driving. They have to have people monitoring that at all points. That's still a level of human interaction. Self-driving, I don't feel will ever exist. I don't think that is something that we will allow as a whole, because there are far too many people actually driving for us to give that sort of control to what is essentially nothingness other than a consciousness of robotics. And I think that is not something that governance will ever allow, ever. Because the ability to have free will and adjust on the fly is something that I don't think that
or to make moral decisions,
right? Or to make moral decisions.
0 and 1s.
Yeah, the train problem. It's the train problem.
It's do I run over the sidewalk of school children or run over the elderly man crossing the street?
Exactly.
Those are the only two options. The math says the elderly person.
Right. So how does a self-driving car do that? I don't think that will exist. At least in our lifetime, I don't think it's going to exist. I don't think it's going to exist in our kids' lifetime either.
Just make sure they watch the Matrix trilogies, all the Terminator movies.
Yes. More important than enthusiasm is to make sure that they are aware that robots are not good. Stop that.
Do not give them more control. Exactly. No, I mean it's one of those things where Greg can hit this more than I can. But as far as it from a father-son perspective or what have you, it's about making automotive, whatever it is, the fun time with Dad. Yeah. Not forcing it so it becomes like homework, but also, oh, I can't wait to go and watch Dad try to change the tires on his Volvo for 6 hours today. It's going to be great.
No, but that's totally accurate. And there's a lot of stereotypes, and some, they're there for reasons. Little boys like to get dirty. Throw them in the backyard, they'll go right to the mud. That's, I got 2 little boys. They do exactly that. I've had them come out here when I'm changing the wheels, and they're like, Dad, can we work on your car with you? So I literally give them tools, and they'll go in my wheel wells, and they'll fake and play. They'll come out.
Maybe that's where the noise is coming from.
Maybe. No. But it's nothing they can do. And they come out, their whole arms are just covered in brake dust. And they're like, Dad, we did it. I'm just like, you sure did. Now go get fucking washed up.
While you're dirty, clean my wheels.
Yeah, exactly. But there's ways to make it fun and interesting. The car is not up in the air. Let them change a wheel or work on the brakes or something like that. And then, it's as they get older, here's how you actually do that. But you introduce them young, you make them young, you make them enthusiastic young, and you kind of just bring them along. And if they go a different path, cool. But you know what? They'll have that really good core memory from when they were kids, and that may parlay into something later in life. So they may have a gap, from 7 to 22. They were more into chess and math and a lot of that. But when they hit 24, 25, they remember all those good times in the garage, and they're like, oh, you know what?
That's me.
Maybe a hobby of mine could be car enthusiasm or fixing cars. And just because you're good at one thing in one realm doesn't mean you can't be enthusiastic about a hobby that you had as a kid, with your dad or whatever. So just because they don't seem enthused by it at that point in time doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be later in life. So I would say try not to view it as you're a failure in that sense. More of just you're just trying to pass on the enthusiasm, and then they can do with that what they will, because they're going to be their own person. So that's sort of where my boys are, right? Both of them are going to be their own person. My oldest is very much into art and things like that. But you know what? He really loves going fast in the backseat of this thing. He's like, Dad, go faster around this turn. And you never would expect it from him, because he's not that kid that's the jock or the car focused guy. My youngest is very much like that. But both of them like going fast, and you never would expect it from the older one, which I think is very cool. But to counteract that whole self-driving thing, I think eventually we're going to have enough nannies where it'll feel like you're not driving. But to keep that enthusiasm, there's ways around that too. Even if it's not working on a car, get them into motorsport, get them into how a car works from an electronics or a functional standpoint that is cool. It could be an infotainment perspective. It could be an audio perspective. It could lead into a career in music. There's aspects of cars that can lead to different avenues of life. So
he actually said, heck yes, way to be a good dad. A few weeks ago I showed my 9-year-old how to install an amplifier.
There you go. So perfect example. Just those little things. Cars are so multifaceted that you can almost pick any part of a car and make it an enthusiastic part of your life. Take this mirror that's behind me, for example. There's a piece of it's carbon fiber. Well, that's pretty cool. What else is made of carbon fiber? Well, they make lots of carrying cases out of carbon fiber. They make lots of aerospace stuff out of carbon fiber.
Seats.
Fucking toilet seats. They make so many things. But you know what? Carbon fiber is on cars. And that's cool. And you can teach your kid that that's part of that. But carbon fiber is found elsewhere in life. And here's where. And maybe it's that's the springboard to something else that they're enthusiastic about. So again, you build the core memories and you build the core, fundamentals from a car perspective. They may branch out into something different, but maybe they'll come back to it later in life. So the best advice I can give is just enthuse them with your enthusiasm, and then let them be their own person. And if they come back to it, and even if they just want to just continue to plow forward and just be the next dad, be the next generation of I'm just going to be a car enthusiast, even better. That's awesome. So, maybe that's the dad advice of the day.
I was going to say, I feel partially guilty asking for the dad advice now.
This is kind of all dad advice at the end of the show.
This has been 20 minutes of dad advice.
Yeah.
That's obviously and here's the thing, with our generation, we're kind of the first parents who had realistic video games growing up, or realistic-ish video games growing up.
That's true, yeah, very true.
Before video games became a thing that just fit in your pocket. Like we had
Yes.
Game Boys and Game Gears and all that, but it was a
Yeah.
thing to have one. Like if someone had
Yes.
them, it was like you found the Grail. Where was that? Like right?
Yeah.
Like now the tablet, the cell phone, the what have you. So like finding that like that, I mean, that was not something my dad and I like. He very much did not understand video games and like didn't necessarily like how much I liked them or what have you, but he kind of understood it. He kind of saw it. And I'll be perfectly honest, like growing up until I think I was like 12, 13, hella into cars,
Yeah.
and construction machines, and trains. Read into that what you may. Put that puzzle together. Sorry, that was a terrible joke. And then once I got into middle school and I started getting more active in like sports and stuff, that became the thing.
Right.
The car enthusiast, I just wanted a car. Like every other 16, 17-year-old kid. I didn't care what it was. And then it wasn't until I got into college and like my buddies and stuff. That's the other thing. As dads, you all know that as much as you drive what they're into to a certain degree, at these ages, their friends drive it almost as much, if not more.
Right.
Right? So, like, if your kid's buddy, Timmy, is into, sports, my friends like doing that. I don't want to miss out. I want to be good at sports. Or if they're into video games or like that, like it's not peer pressure, but it's more like, just being part of the group, right?
Right.
So what got me back into cars, thankfully, was hanging out and a bunch of my buddies in college and a bunch of the guys on the baseball team actually in college. I've mentioned. I was talking to one of my buddies who was on that team. He goes, "Yeah, when I look back at it, we were definitely a racing team with a baseball problem." Because we were racing in the parking lot after practice. How we never got in like serious trouble, I have no idea. But
yeah, that's true.
that drove me, and to this day, that drove my desire. That drove my enthusiasm towards. I don't have a dream car. I have a dream build.
Yeah.
Right, and that sort of stuff. But hopefully that helps. You have Greg, the actual father of two, and me, the not even married. So, on that note,
Good juxtaposition.
I will let Greg off the hook for the random spur of the moment dad advice of this week. So if he's prepared,
I have one.
Okay.
I do have one. And I actually looked it up because I wanted to have something that's sort of involved in this conversation. But the quote that I have here is, "The way you were raised may have been successful, but so were covered wagons and horse-drawn carriages. Update accordingly," which is great advice for exactly what we're talking about. The way you were raised and the way you may have been into car enthusiasm or other things was great. Might want to adjust that for today. If it goes to again, like what you said, if there was something about a car that a kid likes, get them into that. Electronics, robotics, design, art. Like that's cool. That's also part of cars. So you can always parlay that and bring that back to automotive as part of their upbringing and as part of you teaching them to be the next awesome generation.
And remember, Coyote is king. And on that note,
not going to argue that. It's accurate.
I have a reel coming out tomorrow, hopefully, as long as the car doesn't take a shit and it's on sick week. Kind of proving my point. But at any rate, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to, again, thank you for being patient with us, even when we started a little late tonight. If you haven't already, consider subscribing. If you want to support the channel, head down to shiftinglanes.com. Got some pretty cool merch and stuff like that. That's the best way to support the channel. You get a good product out of it, and you don't have to make a long-term commitment like being a member or a supporter. You can do that if you want. We would be very much thankful for that. But for this show, And what it sounds like Greg's drink, that's going to be a wrap.
Yes.
We will we'll catch all of you next week.